Welcome to Categories Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.categories.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. I'm speaking with two members of Breed of Aggression, which is lead singer Susie Hoffman and guitarist Scott Mcclellon. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, now,
Appreciate it, buddy.
now before we get started, I want to tell you guys a funny story. I don't know if you saw this a few weeks ago. When we had set up to do the interview, I like to announce ahead of time who I'm going to be interviewing. And I was trying to post about this interview we're doing, and I typed in the band's name, Breed of Aggression. Right away, I was unable to post it. Facebook did not want me to, I guess based on just the band's name, post the band's name. Have you guys ever experienced anything like that?
No.
Kind of weird, because I hear these stories about other bands. Like another great story I recently heard was Suicidal Tendency. Been around for years, a great metal band. They got locked out of their own Facebook page, if you can believe that, because of just based on the band's name.
Oh my God.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so let's start off with talking about the band's name. I love to ask people that because one of the hardest things to do is always come up with a band name, and Breed of Aggression, pretty original sounding name. I think it sounds pretty cool.
Well, basically, how Susie and I discussed the band name because we were writing pretty aggressive music.
Okay.
And
yeah.
we came at it pretty hard with ideas. We wrote down probably about 25 to 40 things, and we didn't.
It's always the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly what we were doing, and we said, this is really aggressive music, and it was kind of like a mixture of both of our ideas. We're just kind of slapping words together, and then we said, this fits, and it just kind of happened,
Yeah, and in doing research on you guys, I think I read this in the press release your publicist sent me. It said something about Susie's been involved with children discovering instruments in the classroom. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my day job is to, I work with companies overseas to develop percussion instruments.
Oh, wow.
That we import in and sell through the company that I work with, which is West Music.
Oh, that's so totally cool. You're in a band, you're a musician, and you're kind of promoting music full time. I love that.
Absolutely, yeah, day and night.
I mean, getting kids started in music early on, that's great. And how did you guys kind of first hook up?
Well, that's funny. I was writing a metal album, and I write a lot of metal albums, trust me. So I was looking for a vocalist. I was working with one vocalist, and his commitments held him up. He couldn't do it, and I was looking for a guy, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I talked to Ari from OTEP, and he was a guy that he's done like some production work for me for mastering and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm looking for a singer. He goes, well, I know this girl, and I'm like, dude, I'm not really looking for a girl though.
Yeah.
And then he goes, what? I go, well, I need something kind of aggressive. It's metal. I'm looking for like an Anthrax type thing, and like Anthrax meets Priest or whatever. Because I just love that sound.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, dude, you need to hear this girl. And I'm like, okay. So next thing you know, I'm like, well, let me send her a couple songs, and she comes back with our title track to the album, "This Is My War."
Wow.
And I'm like, God damn, she's good.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, that shut my mouth right away.
That's what I was like. Yeah, that was my initial question. Was were you initially kind of were you open to having a female vocalist? But that kind of answers that. I mean, you even look at like a tribute band like Iron Maidens. I mean, we're as far as tribute bands, they're one of the world known tribute bands. And I tell you, the lead singer from that band, man, she sounds like Bruce Dickinson, in the female form. But I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, and
she's amazing.
Yeah, so talk about the album. You said it's called what is it? War. This Is My War.
It's called This Is My War.
This Is My War. And has it been released yet, or is it release coming up?
Oh, it's out.
Okay.
Yeah, it came out November 5th.
Oh, okay. So just the last couple of weeks. That's cool. And I got to. Is this your guys' debut album?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. So, and what I was going to say, you're a relatively new band, so doesn't really make sense what I was getting ready to say. But a lot of bands, because of being locked down and everything for the last year, you have a lot of bands that are holding off on putting out any new music or releasing anything or doing any type of live shows. They're like, we're going to wait till this is all over. But who the hell knows when that's going to be, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And talk a little bit about the making of the album. I mean, Scott, were a lot of these songs already written by the time you got Susie in the band, or how involved was she with the song lyrics?
Well, here's another thing that was really cool working with Susie. Number one, her skill as a singer is just over the top, in my opinion. And then basically, I tossed her like several songs. She picked the one she wanted to work with. She wrote it on all the time she had in her spare time. Next thing you know, she was coming back with another one and another one. We got all the demos done. And she just kept coming at it. I mean, she didn't even have any change. I think we changed like a few parts on one of them. And other than that, she just wrote right to what I gave her. And it was like not an issue at all. It was very simple.
And
so Scott wrote all the music, and then he handed it off to me, and I did all the lyrics. So it was really split.
So Susie, did you feel like getting a chance to not just do the vocals, but be involved with the lyrics? Did you feel that you were allowed to kind of contribute and kind of do your own thing, as opposed to kind of them telling you, okay, this is what we want the song to kind of sound like, and go in that direction?
Yeah, Scott is so open-minded and just so laid back about everything. And he was just like, here you go ahead and do what you can with it and send it back. So I really had, it was open. Anything goes. So I went with it and just did what came to mind and what I wanted to do, what felt good to me. So there wasn't at any time any sort of
direction given.
You have to do this.
Yeah.
You have to, put it in this, like follow this theme or anything like that.
And being that this is your debut album, I would imagine it was a lot of fun, because you're kind of creating the sound of the band. Nobody's heard the band yet until it was released, and so you kind of got that freedom to kind of, we're creating the sound. There's no pre-expectation of what it's already supposed to sound like.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
I agree.
Yeah, and Susie, I was reading that you've been in the music business yourself for like 20 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And have you just been in other bands, or what? You talked about your day job where you work with instruments in the school and that, but what else have you done?
Yes, I have been in bands for about 20 years, and I've also worked at West Music for about 20 years. Prior to that, I worked in record stores, and so just with my job, I am in the industry. So I go to NAMM, and I work with other companies a lot. So, 20 years of doing that.
And NAMM, of course, because COVID too has been, it's kind of been down the last couple of years. Do you think it'll be making a comeback?
It's actually coming back in June of 2022.
How cool is that? And have you guys done any live shows yet, or you have any plans in the near future to do that?
Yeah, we do have plans.
And anything concrete yet, or is it just kind of keep checking back?
Not concrete yet. We actually have the lineup pretty well picked out that we want for this to work, and we know that they can pull off the album the way we wrote it. Yes.
Okay, so now as far, do you have different musicians appear on the album with you, or do you kind of do a lot of instrumentation on the album?
That's the trick. I am the band.
Oh, that's cool.
All that stuff you're hearing is pretty much me musically.
That's cool. Your own one-man band. Your own one-man band, and that's cool for a lot of reasons. I mean, as far as financially being a band, you only have to pay yourself and Susie. I mean, so that's kind of cool. But I know you're primarily a guitarist, Scott. But what's it like, playing other instruments on the album? I mean, I'd imagine being able to do that makes you a more rounded musician.
The thing is, I've been writing a long time in a studio, and I decided to pick up the bass, and I've been asked to do that more than once. Where when I pick it up, I'm like, okay, hey, treat this like a bass, think like a bass player. Don't play a bass like you're a guitar player. I've always been told that by many guys that play bass. I'm like, walk the strings, do something different than what you're doing on the guitar. Don't follow that. Yeah. Because you're just going to sound like another guitar player doing it. And I'm like, so I have to really get my frame of mind changed once I pick that up. And the drums, believe it or not, I use the software just to bring it on, but I write it where I write very difficult drum parts.
Okay.
And what I do is I got to have a guy back here that can actually recreate what I'm doing here.
Yeah. But
it it's difficult because there's some guys that look at me like, "Why'd you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, what? That's a difficult thing to do." And I'm like, "Well, then get to work."
Well, let's talk about your skill level then, because again, I think it's cool for a lot of reasons. I mean, number two, I think, as a musician, makes it that much easier, like to get paying gigs. Somebody might need you to play a bass on their album or something, or do a live gig with them, and that's pretty cool that you can jump up on stage and you can play the bass, you can play the guitars, even do electronic drum parts or whatever. I mean, as a producer and a musician in the studio, you have a much better understanding of what everybody else, in a band does, I would think, that way.
I would agree. I've actually helped produce folks before, like this should sound this way. I think you're screaming too much here, and I have done that in the past. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
I'd rather a person walk in the door and just kind of have their stuff together, And Susie was like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to give her guidance. It was just like, okay, you do you. And every time I heard it, I'm like, I really have no comments here. There's no check marks. It's all good. So it's like I can't really complain when somebody does a good job.
Yeah, and you think, like, the way you've done it so far, like, once you do start doing live gigs, it's a type of situation where if somebody in the live band is maybe able not to make a gig, you can always get somebody else. There's plenty of people, I guess, in whatever town you're in. But is that the type of situation?
We want to keep some sort of sense of loyalty to some people, though.
I like that.
And we do another album.
Yeah.
I would like to actually do it with these folks, too. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's cool too, because then not only is the loyalty there, and everybody's got an invested interest in the band doing good, but I think for a fan, it's kind of a cool thing. But especially kind of first time out, you're taking the band out, you're kind of testing, see how you all gel, kind of getting the kinks out, and then by the time you go and do that second album, you've played together, you know each other a lot better. So I think it's a good way to launch the band.
Oh, absolutely. We had to create the monster.
Yeah.
Now the monster's alive and breathing. So it's like, now we got to, okay, here's the monster, so let's see what we can do with the monster. And it seems to be getting, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of screams and a lot of great reviews. And seems like folks are really digging it, man. Well,
I will tell you, your publicist, Michael, he sent me a press release on the band, and it was about kind of promoting the latest single, Unmasked, and I checked that out. And the thing is, typically when you listen to a band for the first time, you're trying to think, who do they sound like? Who does this remind me? But I can honestly tell people what I dug about it was just based on the one song. I'm like, man, these guys have such a fresh, original, aggressive metal sound. It's like nothing I have heard before. And that is a very hard thing to do. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that something?
Yeah, that's quite a compliment, actually.
Yeah.
Usually I do the same thing. I'm always like, well, who do these guys sound like? So I think that's just a matter of us just having a lot of different influences on us over the years. And then, like, interweaving those things in to create the sound that we have.
Yeah, and let's Susie, you first. Let's talk about some of your influences as far as singers that influenced you to do what you're doing.
I've heard a lot. I've listened to a lot of singers, a lot of female singers. I'm drawn to them. But I have to say my first big influence in singing like this was Sebastian Bach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just, the way he sings, I love it. So I know that was a big influence. And then as I've gone through, through the years, there's been various ones that have stuck out, like Karen Crisis from the band Crisis.
Okay.
And I've always liked Ann Wilson from Heart. So it's just kind of all over the board. I like a lot of alternative music too. So like Karen O or Nina Diaz from Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Girl in a Coma. So those, just hearing all those influences and going, I like that, and I really like this part. It stuck with me.
Yeah, I bet. And the thing, you bring up Sebastian Bach, the thing that's really interesting about him vocally, especially if you go back to those first two Skid Row albums, he's definitely the face and the voice of those Skid Row albums. Interesting to find out it was the other guys that wrote the songs. He, like I said, he's the voice, but can you imagine hearing those songs with any other vocals? I really can't. So no matter what those other guys say, we wrote the songs, but he...
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. He's the voice, and I don't think they could have done what they did with him.
They put a lot of guys in front of that band. It's just not the same.
Exactly, and it's sadly they don't want to get back together, but I think kind of they need each other, you know.
In a sense, I agree. I really do.
And as far as your influences, Scott, you know, as far as guitar players, who are the guys that really did it for you growing up?
Oh boy, that's a huge question.
Yeah.
So, anyways, my thing all started off when I was younger, and I got into bands like right when I was already doing like metal bands, and of course I liked Randy Rhodes.
Wow.
You know, and when that guy died, I was like bawling like a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, no, not the God. You know, like you can't kill the God. You know, it's like that's not fair, God. You can't take the God.
Yeah,
you know, like, so I was pretty bummed out, man. But when Dimebag came out, dude, I flipped my shit. I loved him, and I was like, this guy just goes off the beaten path of just psycho, and then I just went into that. And as a matter of fact, I did a Pantera tribute for about 25 years.
I was going to ask you about that because I read. So let's get into that now a little.
Yeah. I played with Cemetery Gates for about 25 years.
Wow.
With a couple of members of my old band. That was Rick Henderson, Nate Arrington, and started off with a guy named Sean Huffstyler. We went through several drummers. We ended up with a guy named Buddy Jackson at the end. He was actually in our video at Freedom Aggression. So basically, I worked with a lot of, and then we switched over to Domination the last 3 or 4 years because there was just guys moving and things were changing. There was a lot of years, you know, and you know, but we took on a lot of challenges of learning some. I remember the first Pantera song I learned was "Regular People."
Wow.
And I was cursing the vocalist like, "You son of a bitch! This thing's very difficult to learn."
Yeah.
And then I realized this shit's gonna make me a better player.
Yeah.
You know, and then I started learning like that guy's just got notes all over the neck. And what an innovator as a player! I mean, just a very awesome creative guitarist.
Now let me ask you: was that tribute band before he was killed, or after?
Actually, it kind of started around when he was in Damage Plan. I got a funny story about that. We played at Austin St. Louis one night.
Wow.
And we played the night before them.
Oh. Wow.
And Damage Plan came the next, or I think they played the night before us.
Wow.
Well, they said, this is terrible. They had like 500 people here, and you're here tonight playing Pantera, and you got 2,000.
Yeah. There's no substitute.
That's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's no substitute. But I'll, you know, talking a little bit about Randy Rhodes, you know, what amazes me about that guy, there's no denying his talent, but a couple things. I mean, he played on those 2 like early Quiet Riot albums, but those are only really available in Japan. Nobody here in the States has really heard of him. So basically, he's got those 2 Ozzy albums. That is his legacy. And yet, with just 2 albums, look at the huge fan base that guy has all these years later.
Well, there was this classical influence that nobody does what that guy does. I don't care. Jakey Lee was a beautiful player too, and you know, of course, Zach Wild.
Yeah.
But you know, you hear Randy play, and there's another guy in there that a lot of people don't know about. I think his name is Joe Holmes.
Oh yeah, he played with David Lee Roth too. Yeah.
Man, that dude did a solo thing.
Yeah.
And he made my jaw drop, man. That guy is an outstanding guitar player and very underrated.
I mean, he's so underrated that he was in Ozzy's band, but you know, he did some live touring with him. Never did an album, I don't think, but yet very little people even know what the guy even looks like. I mean, that's how low key he is.
Oh, he's very low key. I kind of read his history.
Yeah.
He's got a new album out. It's called something like just Funkaloco or something, just something really weird.
Yeah.
And he's like got all these different vocalist guys from like really bizarre bands.
Yeah.
And he's doing some guitar work on there, and I'm like, man, this could have been the next Ozzy album, and it would have just been over the top awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is just Pharmokos. That's what it's called.
Okay.
And I'm telling you right now, dude, you see the videos, the way that guy's playing guitar, you'll just be floored.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
What amazes me, I hear everybody talk about that solo stuff he's done, and it's like, how does he stay so low key? Like you said, he should have been much bigger, even in Ozzy's band. I don't know what happened, but it's like he's got this underground fan base too that people just love everything he's done.
I seen him live with Ozzy one time, and I'm like, who is that guy? Because I was thinking Zach was going to be with him.
Yeah.
So I show up to the show, and I'm like, who is this dude? He's got weird looking hair, no shirt on, and like cargo shorts and combat boots. He just looked like a bum. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that has something to do with it, because I know Ozzy likes guys that look like rock stars, but
Oh, that guy didn't care. He's probably told Ozzy, "This is who I am, man. Take it or leave it, dude."
Yeah. And getting back to Randy too, you mentioned him being classically trained. I mean, his family owned that school. They still do. And I understand that had Randy lived, his plan was not to stay with Ozzy. He was going to eventually go off and do his classical thing. I mean, just think what that could have turned into. I mean...
Oh, he would have done anything. It would have been amazing. I mean, just listen to the intro to the song Diary of a Madman. If you don't hear classical in that, I mean, wow. I listen to the stuff and I'm like, dude, you touch my soul with your music, man. He's just an amazing player.
Yeah, and you know what amazes me about Randy Rhodes? Okay, well, look at Ozzy. Okay, like even going back to Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath, I guess they split the songwriting credits, but it was really on those early albums, Geezer Butler wrote all the lyrics, not Ozzy. And
that's what I heard. I read that myself.
And even in Ozzy's solo band, I don't know if you've noticed, all the guys he hires in his solo band are all great songwriters in their own right. In fact, I've heard Ozzy talk about it was Randy Rhodes that actually taught Ozzy how to really write a song. Until he met Randy, he had no idea how to really, write a song the right way. So just think about that.
That guy could have been a teacher or something. He was just that.
He was that good. And in fact, I also heard, Scott, before you did Breed of Aggression, that you'd released a solo album a couple years ago. Let's talk about that, because I went online and I was checking some out. Pretty cool stuff.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's called Brutal Intentions. I wrote a lot of that in an earlier time when I was not a very happy guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can hear it in the lyrics. I was kind of like a little mad at some situations at the time, divorce and all the good stuff, the cheating wife and the whole works. I'm like, oh, here's a kiss to you,
Yeah.
Like, here, take some of this, girl. I'll even write a song for you. But it was like one of them things, that's how I release my anger. I do it through a song. If I'm going to do it anywhere, I ain't going to hurt anybody that way. Well, maybe emotionally. But.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what your music's for, to kind of communicate. Yeah.
And I was able to kind of just unleash and go psycho. And I was really big at Strapping Young Lad. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Devon Townsend's one of my favorite vocalists. I liked when he did Strapping Young Lad because he was all balls out, just I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. If you don't like it, change the channel. I don't care.
Well, I like that.
That's what I did on that album.
In fact, Devon Townsend. Okay, he, as you probably know, he goes all the way back to he did one album and like one tour with Steve Vai. That's where a lot of people first.
That's the album that introduced me to that man.
Me too. Down Into the Pain was the song. Yep.
Oh God, man, I love that whole album. That just start to finish, just play it.
That's one of the first times like Steve Vai had vocals on his solo music, and eventually he'd start doing his own vocals. But
boy, did he find the right guy, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like you said, nobody's ever heard of Devon Townsend before that, and then he created a whole new thing with the Strapping Young Lad. Now I've heard some of it. I'm not a diehard fan or anything, but I tell you, it's just amazing that a guy that did that one album with Steve Vai. I mean, he was able to go on and create his own little thing.
Well, now look at him now. He's got the Devon Townsend band, and he's doing epic shows with background singers and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, so you just really never know. Now, talk a little. So between doing the solo album, Breed of Aggression, like, would you consider you're much more of a band guy, like, or could you see yourself doing another solo album down the line?
I already got one wrote.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's actually sitting there waiting to be released. It's just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, I got so much getting out right now. I think I just better kind of chill on that one for a little bit.
Yeah. And so Breed of Aggression just released the debut album. You guys said November 5th. Is it available like in all formats, CD, digitally, I'd imagine?
Oh, it's everywhere.
And is there a vinyl release or not yet?
Man, we haven't talked about yet, but we're considering it.
That's cool because, vinyl has made a huge comeback in the last several years. I've even seen recently this year where some labels, believe it or not, are releasing stuff on cassette. I'm like, wow.
Oh, my stars. I didn't know that.
Like, even, I don't know if you ever heard of Rat Pack Records. They've got, like, Doug Pinnick from King's X. He just released a solo album, George Lynch on there. And some of that stuff they're releasing, it's just mind-boggling.
That's the drummer from Korn with them, I think.
Yeah. Well, he's got a solo album, and then he does a thing with George Lynch. It's called KXM. They got, like you said, George Lynch, Doug Pinnick, and then they got the drummer from Korn, Ray Luzier.
Oh, dude, that thing is pretty. I've seen some of their work, man. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I interviewed Doug recently about it, and he was telling me, he goes, we've done 3 albums. We were able to kind of create our own sound. So that's pretty cool when you get opportunities like that.
Oh, dude, Doug's just amazing. I'd kill to do a song with that dude.
Yeah, I mean, he can do all kinds of stuff. He also put out this blues, this kind of like band that does blues type heavy rock. It's just like nothing you've ever heard.
No, he's the real deal, man. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and what else is you guys got planned? Just to is the live show going to maybe be next year?
Yeah, I would probably focus on that because we got some preparation to do, and we've got the lineup. We already got everything where we're going to rehearse. Then right now, we just want to get that. And Susie and I are talking about BOA Part 2, and we want to do it with that band. I mean, and that's the goal. Susie has a bass player called Lincoln. Yeah. He's a wonderful guy, and I got another guitar player from a band called NOLA. Oh, okay. His name is Jason Wood, and he's absolutely amazing. And he's a good friend of my bass player from the Pantera Tribute, which these guys do the windmill hair thing. I mean, they're just like the Psycho Twins on stage. And then the drummer, he comes from a band called Leadfoot, and they call him the Vanilla Gorilla, and he is just a damn drummer. Yeah. And so, do you guys have any nicknames like for you, for Scott or Susie?
The only nickname that I have is Spider Baby.
Oh, I dig that. That's cool. Yeah.
You know what everybody calls me? No bullshit. It's called Rockstar. That's what they all call me. And I'm like, you guys, leave me alone. Stop.
Oh well, talking about Rockstar. Before we wrap this up, I just came to me. I got to mention this. I understand you also play. Speaking of rock stars, you also play on Tony Martin of the ex-Black Sabbath singer's upcoming solo album. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
How did you hook up with him?
That's coming.
I would
say that's probably like, it's one of those things where the way people in Black Sabbath, and Tony was the one who wrote his lyrics, by the way. He is very poetic. Yeah. And a wonderful individual. And we met through social media years ago. And there's funny stories. I didn't know who he was.
Oh, when he contacted, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it said vocalist England. And I like his look. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm writing an album. Kind of like how I met Susie, just asking around. Yeah. And he sent me a song back. He goes, well, send it over, mate. So I sent him the song. And he sent it back. And I'm like, wow, this guy's like beyond retarded good. I'm like, what happened here? I mean, I kind of got the same thing with Susie, too, though. It was like, when I was listening to him, I'm like, this guy's like really, really good. What happened here? I looked at this bio, and I'm like, Black Sabbath?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me that? And I go, why didn't you tell me you're saying? But he goes, well, you never asked, mate. And I'm like, wow, I just recorded with the guy from Black Sabbath. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I mean, I didn't see it coming, Jason. It was kind of a slap in the face,
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed this guy recently. He had Tim Owens do some vocals on his album. And he was telling me that Tim Owens shared with him. He goes, growing up, what a huge Priest fan he was. And he says, man, the only thing is about him getting the gig in Priest, he goes, these guys went from being my heroes to being my friends,
And that's kind of what happened with me. Tony and I are good friends.
Yeah.
I talk to him quite often on, Messenger. Well, I'll be sitting there and, hey, guys, what's going on? I'm like, all right, cool. And we become buddies. I know his daughters and, his wife. And I was in England and I recorded there. And
I was going to ask that. Okay.
You know who was there helping us record was really interesting. You might know the guy. Some people know him. Mike Exeter is a pretty top-name producer who's worked with Black Sabbath quite often. Okay. He worked with Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls.
Wow.
And so this guy's sitting in the studio. I had no idea who this guy was. And I'm like, well, who are these guys? A couple of English mates, And I'm sitting here, with British folks, and all of a sudden I look, he said his name, and I'm like, all of a sudden I took a picture with the dude in the studio, with me, him, and Tony, and everything. And I started looking him up. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's like portfolio is huge. And I just had no clue that he was that big. And then he was in that video with Tony Iommi, Ian Gillan. They did Smoke on the Water and all that stuff. And he's in that video with them.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, so this guy's like been everywhere. And he was the nicest guy you ever met. I mean, I love people in this industry because I don't care how big they are. They're all good people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you'd meet somebody like that and you think, yeah, he played in Black Sabbath. And he's like, it's just this little band I played in, from England. But yeah.
Right. And believe it or not, I mean, Tony knows that he's got a little clout with that. Yeah. And he doesn't use it as an ego thing, but he knows it helps.
No, but he's got the right to do that. I mean, and what's interesting about his time in the band, I don't have a number for you, but I know he did quite quite a number of albums with him, and he was in and out of a band, between.
We made 6 and 1 live album, I believe, in 10 years.
Yeah, and he was in the band between Ronnie James Dio's time in the band, and
one less album than Ozzy did.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, sadly, by a lot of fans and the band themselves, his time in the band has kind of gone forgotten. But if people would take the time to listen to those albums, they're really great albums. I mean, I think the best.
I've noticed something though. To answer you, Jason, on that, I've been kind of looking around and checking out the history and seeing all the fans out there. There's a lot of people recognizing all that stuff now,
which is kind of cool.
They love them.
Yeah, and I think my favorite album he did with them was The Headless Cross. I mean, but I loved all the stuff, and I'm kind of glad to see that people are getting a new appreciation for that, for his time in the band.
I think the Sabbath fans really are. They're reaching out to that stuff because they want more, and actually seeing the reaction to the album that is coming is kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Actually, I didn't see it going that big, and it's a lot bigger than I thought.
Yeah, in fact, your publicist, I think he's also handling the press for that, and he told me, don't worry, we'll put you in touch with Tony when the time's right. But that's another thing I got to ask about. Your publicist, Michael, super cool guy, and I tell you, he gets all the great bands and musicians that he represents. I mean, he works, for example, with Kiss. So you guys are in good company. How did you hook up with a guy like that?
Well, through our label, through Lloyd Freeze and Jeffrey Swanson.
Okay.
They work with Susie and I, and they said, well, we're going to go ahead and have Michael Brandwell do all your marketing. And after just dealing with Michael, he is another wonderful individual. Very good man.
Yeah, because I was going to tell you, I'm a fan of, I don't know if you've ever seen his podcast he does about Kiss-related stuff called The Three Sides of a Coin. He knows his stuff, super cool guy. I just dig that he's so into music, besides just, what he does business-wise.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's definitely... that guy, like Lloyd told me when he first, like the label, vice president of the label, and Lloyd and I are very good friends. Yeah. And he goes, hey man, this Michael Brandwell guy, I think his hands are in a lot more places than I thought.
He even represents.
He's everywhere, dude.
He even represents Britney Spears, from what I understand. So I mean, he's not just all in the metal bands. He's into everything. I mean, I guess whatever's profitable, but that makes sense. And I love the fact that he's got a cool little podcast. So he's
a social media genius.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think from what I know about his history, back in the day, like when the internet was first really getting launched and people were starting to know what that was, he helped Kiss launch their first official website. So he's been involved in everything. But I was going to say, in regards to Tony Martin, once the album, like, do you play on the entire album, or do you just play on a couple songs?
Actually, there's 3 songs that he had done, and his son Joe was involved with some of the guitar work there. And his son Joe's a good kid. And but there was 3 songs he had. And he goes, "Do you mind if I do this?" I'm like, "Of course not." I mean, I wrote 8 of the songs, but we are releasing another album.
Oh, cool.
Believe it or not. And it's just kind of like not secret, but it's out there already, sort of. There's going to be a vinyl release with 4 new tracks, because if we were going to release it on vinyl, we had to cut 2 songs off.
Oh, okay.
And he goes, I don't want to do that, but the label says, why don't we just do it on vinyl, make it a double album, and add 4 more songs.
And the cool thing about that, it becomes a collector's type of thing, which I really dig,
Oh, yeah, so that's going to help out. We're going to, and I'm going to have 4 more songs that I do with them. And actually, we're in the writing process of those 4 songs at this time.
And then a final question regarding that. Any chance that once he starts doing live shows that you'll be part of his live band, or is that not known at this point?
In the U.S., for sure, I know that. And if it happened in England, he'd probably fly me out there. Yeah, that's probably going to happen. Oh, so
you're involved in all this stuff. Well, that's just totally great.
Yeah, I'm kind of like one of those guys that I like to stay humble and quiet, and then let the music do the talking.
And then you mentioned being influenced by Dime. I was kind of curious. People, celebrities, and like even John Lennon. Obviously, that's coming up. The anniversary of his death. But and oddly enough, Dime was killed on the same day. I think it's December 8th. But before Dime, I mean, you got to really think. He's the first kind of guitar player, rock star, if you want, to actually be murdered on stage while he's playing. I mean, just think about that. After that happened, did you guys ever have that fear about, hey, we better tighten up?
There was a little bit of that when I was doing the tribute. I'm like, what if we get some kind of copycat thing or something,
Yeah.
Here I am, the guitar player, Mr. Target, and I'm like, it kind of freaked me out a little bit at first. Then I'm thinking, man, this is kind of like a one-off situation.
Yeah, I mean, it really hasn't happened since, but it just, for the first time, it kind of made people kind of think, well, you know, I thought I was just going to a rock concert, but things happen.
I can barely even watch that video without freaking out, though, because I watch that video and I just look at the moment that happened, like just the confusion that happened in that room when that went down. I'm like, oh my god!
And can you imagine being Vinnie
really
Paul?
happened, man.
Can you imagine being Vinnie Paul? You know, that's your kid brother, and you see him literally right before your eyes. You know, you're right behind him. Just
I understood that. I seen a thing. I know Chad from Mudvayne. They used to do shows with us when we did the Pantera thing a lot when Mudvayne was up and coming. So they would open up for us in Chicago and stuff like that. I played like alongside Disturbed and all those bands back in the day.
Yeah.
So I'm up there, and Chad writes this article about, get Pantera back together. Could you guys at least respect the guy who lost his brother? I don't think that's the first thing he wants to go do.
Yeah.
After his brother got killed right in front of him, show him a little respect. The guy's trying to move on.
Yeah.
And I totally understood that. I was like, I get why he would feel that way. Maybe I just want to do new music and I don't want to think about this.
Yeah.
And Chad wrote a really nice article, like, just leave him alone. Apparently they've had conversations about it, I can see why Vinny would have been just like, hey man, just every time I do a Pantera song, I think of my brother.
Yeah, and can you imagine? And then you'd have that flashback maybe of him being murdered right before your eyes.
They were like the perfect writing team, man. Those guys.
I mean, they were just kind of a heavier Van Halen. I mean, they were very in fact, I've heard stories about the fact that Eddie Van Halen gave that yellow guitar on the back of Van Halen 2 to the family to be buried with Dime. I mean, and he was like the ultimate Van Halen fan. Could you imagine having Eddie's guitar buried in your coffin with you? Kiss casket too.
That guitar's pretty. That's a hell of a guitar to bury too. I mean.
Yeah.
I remember that guitar the first time I came out. All I wanted to do was get one. I was just a kid. Like, look at this stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
And it just the stripes and just the weirdness of it, just the way he made them, and nobody did what he did. He was an innovator. Eddie Van Halen was a wonderful player too. I mean, he was part of my influence in life, of course. But when my manager listens to my music, he goes, "What I hear from you as a player is a mixture of Dimebag and Michael Schenker."
Wow. Yeah. I actually, that's a lot closer. I could hear that. And was Michael Schenker like at all an influence on you?
Oh God, dude! I remember when Strangers in the Night UFO Live came out, man. I think I had it on my player like every day, just for a while. It was just one of those things that it was so cool. I mean, I love the back when you listen to their studio albums. Yeah. To me, they just didn't have that effect of when he was playing live.
Yeah.
Michael was just a demon when he was on the stage, and when he was up there, he was just winging it, man, and he was kicking your ass. He's a great player.
Yeah, UFO. Any UFO album with him, I just think UFO was totally his thing. I mean, I think I loved a lot of stuff he did with the Scorpions, but I think UFO was more his own thing, whereas he was kind of competing with his brother, which I think is why he ultimately left to do his own thing.
Right, but there's another great band. I mean, you listen to the Scorpions, Klaus Meine. I mean, nobody sings like that man. I mean, that guy has the most unique voice ever. And then you've got Matthias Chad on guitar. There's another guy that is beyond underrated. Very underrated,
because you hear about the Scorpions, but you never hardly hear his name mentioned in reference to.
He is like really, really good.
Yeah. And wow, just amazing stuff. And also I want to ask you about Pantera. I don't know if you realize this, but like on their very first album, when they first came out, they were more like they had more of a glammy kind of look. Did you?
Yep.
Were you a fan back then, or did you?
Actually, when I first heard them, it was Cowboys from Hell, of course. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I kind of went back to that album. I'm like, not for me. It wasn't for me because the new sound was where my head was at. I was in that headspace at that time.
It's kind of funny to go back and see, because a lot of times, like that's me. My introduction to that band was Cowboys from Hell too, and I'm like, when you hear that. That's Pantera. That's the sound we know and love. But then when you go back to the first album, I got respect for it because that's kind of that's kind of a roots and where they came from. But it was a totally different singer, totally different band. They were much younger at the time, but so you got to have respect for that. But I thought, man, look at what they went on to become.
Well, probably one of the heaviest songs they ever did. It wasn't even one of the fast ones. Was 5 Minutes Alone. I mean, if you listen to that song start
Yeah.
to finish, I mean, it makes you want to just punch holes in the wall. I mean, it's just got that feel. And and probably one of the most amazing musical things they did was Throws of Rejection.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of the Far Beyond Driven album.
Oh yeah.
And that to me, when that album, you just plug it in, it's just like, here, put your seatbelt on, man. It's real metal. I mean, everybody says Vulgar's the album. I'm like, I don't know, maybe to you.
Yeah.
I'm more leaning towards the, Far Beyond Driven. That was my thing.
Oh, cool. And let's keep in touch, you guys, because I really enjoyed talking today, and I'd love to do it again. Now, before we wrap this up, if people want to get physical copies of your album, they can do that.
What was that?
Like you're selling physical CDs as well, or is it just available?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
And where's the best place to get that? Would be through your site or what?
You can do it through our site and Dark Star Records, and it's Dark Star. Yeah, go ahead, Susie.
It's also on Amazon, and you can get it from Best Buy.
Oh, cool, Best Buy, yeah. Wow.
We're everywhere, man.
And so, speaking of where you're from, where are you guys from?
Go ahead, Susie.
We're from the Chicago area.
Okay, now, that's what else I want to ask you. Okay, now, Chicago, of course, for years has been known as birthplace of the blues, and I know they got a huge blues scene, but what's the metal scene like there these days?
Well, it depends. I mean, a lot of times I've noticed metal is strong.
Yeah.
When you go toward St. Louis, dude, those guys come out of the woods or whatever they do, dude. But I'll tell you right now, they're animals over there, man. They love the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's only a couple hours away, so it ain't that big of a trip. And you get down towards Chicago, there's metal clubs a little bit there, like Reggie's. There's all that. There's the Forge. You go there, man, all the metalheads show up, dude. When you start playing Pantera or any kind of metal and they know you're something good, they're going to be there.
Oh, yeah. And so when you guys start playing out live, I imagine start locally first, but is the plan to go to other states and that?
I would imagine so, yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And so what has been the...
overseas, to be honest with you, Jason.
Yeah. What's the buzz like? I mean... like you said, people are just kind of finding out about the band. The album just literally came out a couple of weeks ago. So, what kind of messages and response are you guys getting from your fans online?
What do you think? I'm hearing great reviews.
Yeah, I'm hearing good things too. I don't know if that's just because people are keeping things to themselves if they don't care for it, but I'm hearing good things. That they like it, that it's different.
Yeah, and that's the reason I asked is because, again, just to go on my own experience, hearing that one song that was sent to me, I thought, man, this sounds fresh, it sounds new. And I think right now you guys are maybe one of the best kept secrets out there. I think...
oh, dude, I appreciate that.
More people need to find out about this band. And that's why let's keep in touch because, next time you release a new single, let me know and we can do it again. But Susie and Scott, thanks for taking time to talk to me. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, Jason, likewise.
Yeah, and the interview we just did, just want to let you know, I'm planning to post it in 2 or 3 weeks. Once I have a concrete date for you, I'll let you guys know. And feel free to post it on any of your sites. We love that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we love all people out there doing what you're doing, too.
And that's what makes doing this worthwhile. That's part of the reason I do it, because, talking to great musicians like yourself that got great music. I mean, I was talking to this other guy today, this guitar shredder. His name is Andrew Lee, and he's in this death metal band called Rip to Shreds. But he's releasing this solo album called Andrew Lee's Shrapnel. Just great 80s type shredded music. And
awesome.
I was asking him, hey, dude, I had trouble finding anything on you online. Do you have any kind of social media? He goes, oh, it's not about social media. I told him, well, the only thing, Andrew, is you're a really great kept secret. We just need to have more people know about you. So again, it's refreshing to see that there's great new music on the way for fans, because that's the thing that kind of disappoints me sometimes. A lot of bands, well, we're not going to release any new music. We're just going to go with what we have, and nobody's buying CDs.
No, that's not how I roll, Jason. I write music every day.
Oh, well, we need more people like you, Scott. Keep it up.
I actually, Tony's like, I don't write fast as you. Like, I sent him he asked me for some new songs. I sent him 80 songs, and he goes, "Wow." He's like, "Where did you have these hidden?" I go, "Well, I got about 400 more. What do you want?"
So Scott, are you just creating are you just creating riffs every day? And when you say you write, is that pretty much what you're doing? You're just coming up with new riffs every day, and then you
all the time, man.
Wow, and that's why I'm even more excited to hear the new Tony Martin album, because knowing that you were very involved with the writing, it's not going to maybe sound like just another Black Sabbath album, from that era. He's going to, because he's working with different musicians,
Right.
And you're a very different sounding guitar player than Tony Iommi, but you got your own thing going.
I've seen posts about that, like, is this guy going to keep up with Tony and stuff? I'll never be Tony, dude. I go, Tony Iommi is Tony Iommi.
I mean,
he's always going to be the guy who created metal.
Yeah.
There's no comparing that, and I respect the man for what he's done.
Well, and just a final thing before we wrap it up, Tony Iommi, it's amazing to know anything about his story. I mean, he was really the one that gets credit for creating that metal sound, and that never would have happened if he had not had that accident or that injury.
That's why he's really cool, man. He's a good guy. I mean, I got to respect the man. He's delivered something that nobody will ever have that.
Yeah, and Tony Martin, if he wanted to play with Tony Iommi still, he could, but he's got you playing on his album, so I think that says it all right there. And Susie, before we finally wrap it up, anything else you want to say to the fans?
Just thank you for listening, and we hope to bring you more music.
Okay, and I'm going to get a copy of the album, and when I do, in a couple months from now, I want to invite you both back, because we have this other interview show we do called On the Record, where we talk to musicians about their favorite bands, favorite album. Now, Scott, today you mentioned like Pantera, Sabbath, Randy. You could pick the album that you would like to talk about, and same thing with you, Susie. So think about that, and I'll be reaching out to you guys in a couple of months. And if I don't talk to you, have a great holiday season, and we'll see you next year.
Absolutely.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.